Has this ever happened to you? Last piece. Are you kidding me? Inevitably, when you make things, a piece is going to end up too long, too short, fit kind of funny, or just not work at all the way you planned. And don't worry, it happens to all of us. But there are 3 things we can do to help catch issues early instead of potentially ruining finished projects. All 3 things incorporate stuff I learned during Mark Rober's online engineering course that I took last year. Let's start with number 1, getting your project out of your head and on paper. This can be accomplished many different ways, including some sketches, a detailed note on your phone, some flashcards with features on them, which is something Mark talks a lot about, a 3D scale model that you've rendered, or any combination of these. The key here is to get the ideas out of your head so you can spend less energy thinking about what you're going to do and more energy trying to process how you're going to do it. More often than not, you'll find a couple of areas you might need to adjust. For example, when I originally came up with the in-garage shed, it was bigger, had a much bulkier frame, and used very thin plywood. However, I made a model in Fusion 360 and very quickly realized just how much material that was going to take. So instead, I shrunk it a little bit, slimmed down the frame, and used a thicker plywood. That allowed me to get the same strength that I needed, but using less material, which also cost less. Number 2, make a small physical prototype. This is for slightly more complex projects, but the prototype should still be simple. We really only need it to loosely function the same way the full-scale one will. In fact, here's a prototype I made out of popsicle sticks for a flip-top tool stand. For this particular project, I started from my sketch and built my prototype from it. And the prototype is showing me a few things immediately. For example, I really need to focus on keeping the frame and the flip-top square, as well as making these holes very precise. And that's going to keep the flip top from binding like it currently does on the back. Once I saw how much space I had on the sides, I also got the idea to add this extension cord holder on one side and add a material flip top stand on the side. That's where I'm going to keep the material as I pass it through my planer or work on it on my sander. The third thing you can do is to prototype specific features. On the flip top stand, there are a couple things we can test before we even get started on the project, such as the vertical space that we need between the flip top and the bottom, and will the center pipe be able to support the weight of both the tools and material we'll have going through there. Let's prototype both of these now, starting with this vertical clearance. Now, you can totally do this in a modeling software like SketchUp or Fusion 360, or you can grab some scrap cardboard and make a prototype in just a couple of minutes. Now, on my flip top stand, I'm gonna have a planer and sander, but my planer is a little bit wider than my sander, and my sander is a little bit taller than my planer. Instead of making 2 mock-ups, I'm gonna use one and just have the widest dimensions in both directions. I also wanted to account for the tallest part of my sander being a little bit offset from center and the thickness of the flip top itself. The only other thing I need is some scrap wood with a nail to represent the pivot point. I've set the height of the nail so that it is the same as the height of my tallest tool, including the gap to the pivot point in the middle of the flip top stand. Once we put this prototype on the nail, we can test the flip top without having to build anything. We can quickly see that the corner of the planer would hit the bottom as well as the far end of the top of the sander, which is not good. So we need to increase our height by a couple of inches. With this extra gap, we can now be confident that we're not going to hit the corners of our planer or the top of the sander. All we need to do now is get this new height measurement, and that is how far we need to have our pivot point from the bottom of our flip top. While doing some research ahead of the project, I found a little bit of a debate online as to whether I could get away using the thinner walled aluminum EMT conduit, or if I need to shell out the additional money for some thicker steel rigid pipe. Instead of putting my expensive tools on the line without knowing, I would rather stress test both pipes and know which one I need to use ahead of time. Now, I'm heavier than both tools combined, as well as any material we're gonna put through them, so if the pipes can hold up me, they can definitely hold up the tools. We're gonna start with the aluminum EMT conduit. And there it goes. Well, that's not gonna work. Test number 2 is gonna be the steel rigid pipe. That's not going anywhere. Our stress test showed us a couple of important things. Number one, I should really start running again. Number two, the aluminum EMT pipe bent almost immediately, so it is out. Fortunately, the steel rigid pipe didn't even budge, so we're definitely gonna use it. Now that we've done all of our testing, the last thing we need to do is actually build the project. So it's montage time. Other than the hinge for the tabletop being back ordered, we ran into almost no problems during the entire project, which is awesome. I do wish I had prototyped a couple different options for these locking mechanisms, but I'm going to keep that in mind for the next project. Having a flip top will keep both of these stationary tools readily available, which is essential in a small shop like mine. Off camera, I've prototyped other projects, including shop projects like these hanging wall control panels in front of my tool wall. Like the flip top stand, these save space while allowing immediate access to the tools I need. I've got that video pulled up for you right over here, so I'll see you in that video.